Good evening, everyone. Tonight we're going to talk about one of the most brutal differences between the rich and the poor, how they look at the world. Picture this. You're standing on a road and there's a wall blocking the way. One person stares at it and sighs. That's the end of the line. Another looks at the same wall and thinks, if I build a ladder, dig under, or go around it, I'll get further than anyone else. That thin difference is the line that separates two worlds. Here's the reality. If tonight you keep thinking and acting like the majority out there, you might not survive the financial battlefield. Money doesn't care about your feelings. Opportunity won't wait until you're brave. And risk won't disappear because you wish it away. So before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy what I'm doing here. And drop your location and local time in the comments. I want to know where you're joining me from, whether it's New York, Los Angeles, or a small town somewhere in between. Now turn off the lights, maybe turn on a fan for some soft background noise, and let's begin our journey tonight. The poor see obstacles. The rich see opportunities. That's the first dividing line, and it determines which side you'll stand on. Poor thinkers always find reasons to stop. The economy is unstable, the competition is too strong, the timing isn't right. These statements sound rational, even responsible. But in reality, they're excuses, bricks stacked into a wall of paralysis. Rich thinkers don't deny the problems. They look deeper. What opportunity hides inside this? How can I flip this challenge into an advantage? If the market dips, poor thinkers panic. Rich thinkers see assets on sale. If competition is fierce, poor thinkers give up. Rich thinkers take it as proof the market is valuable and figure out how to carve a niche. This isn't optimism, it's ruthless realism. As Kevin O'Leary says, business isn't about feelings, it's about numbers. The rich strip away emotion. They ask, can this problem be solved profitably? If yes, act. If no, move on. Poor thinkers never get that far. They drown in what-ifs and do nothing. Picture two entrepreneurs facing the same challenge. Their supplier fails. The poor one panics, blames bad luck, and stalls. The rich one sees an opening. Time to negotiate new deals, diversify suppliers, maybe even create his own production line. One gets stuck, the other scales. Same event, opposite outcomes. Opportunity rarely shows up neatly packaged. It usually looks like a mess. A problem, an injustice, a shortage, a crisis. The poor back away. The rich lean in. The difficulty is the barrier that keeps most people out, and that's why the payoff is real for the few who push through. Every major business you know exists because someone thought this way. Netflix turned late DVD fees into streaming. Airbnb turned a shortage of cheap hotels into a global platform. Amazon turned the hassle of buying books into the world's largest marketplace. Poor thinkers saw obstacles. Rich thinkers saw billion-dollar doors. So how do you train this mindset? Start by catching yourself the next time you complain. Instead of asking, why me? Ask, where's the opportunity here? Write down 3 problems you're facing right now, money, work, or relationships, and force yourself to find at least one hidden opportunity in each. Repeat this until your reflex changes, because the world doesn't pay for complaints. It pays for solutions. The poor see walls. The rich build doors. Tonight, The only question is, which one are you seeing? The rich and the poor both wake up with the same deposit, 24 hours. No one gets more, no one gets less. The only difference is how they use it. That is the thin line. The poor kill time like it's worthless. The rich guard time like it's treasure. Poor thinkers burn hours on autopilot. They scroll endlessly, binge shows, gossip, and complain. Ask them where the time went, and they shrug. To them, an hour is nothing. But it isn't nothing. It's life itself slipping away unseen. Rich thinkers calculate time like money. They track it, protect it, and refuse to waste it on things with no return. To them, every hour is an investment. Think about it. At midnight, life deposits 24 hours into your account. You can't save them for later. You can't borrow from tomorrow. You can only spend them. By the next midnight, they're gone. The poor spend blindly, hoping things work out. The rich spend strategically, knowing time invested wisely compounds into wealth, health, and freedom. Picture two employees finishing work at 5 p.m. One goes home, collapses on the couch, and disappears into television. The other uses the same hours to study, to build, to network. 10 years later, one wonders why nothing changed, while the other has wealth, freedom, and choices. Same 24 hours, different use. That's the line. The poor justify wasting time by calling it relaxation. But relaxation is strategic. It recharges you. Wasting time is different. It drains you. The rich know the difference. They rest deliberately to sharpen themselves. The poor confuse mindless distraction with rest, and it robs them. Opportunities are time-sensitive. A deal appears, a connection opens, a door cracks, but only briefly. The rich are ready to move. The poor hesitate and lose it. Then they complain about bad luck, never admitting that time lost was the real enemy. Here's the blunt truth. If you don't make time work for you, time will work against you. Every wasted hour is compounding poverty. Every disciplined hour is compounding wealth. The difference doesn't show up tomorrow, but it becomes impossible to ignore over decades. So how do you cross the line? Audit your last week. Where did the hours go? How many into building skills, assets, relationships? How many into distractions? This is not judgment. It's accounting. If your calendar is filled with waste, your future will be too. Your challenge: reclaim just one wasted hour a day. Trade an hour of mindless scrolling for an hour of building. That's 7 hours a week, 30 hours a month, over 300 a year. That difference is the margin between mediocrity and transformation. Because in the end, the poor act as if time is infinite and wake up broke, tired, and full of regret. The rich act as if time is scarce and end up free. Both live on the same clock. One kills it. The other guards it. Embracing risk versus fearing risk. The poor think risk is something to avoid. The rich know risk is something to manage. That is the thin line. Every opportunity worth having carries uncertainty. The poor freeze. The rich move. Poor thinkers cling to guarantees. They want steady paychecks, predictable routines, and zero volatility. Safety feels comfortable, but it caps their future. They avoid investments because they might lose money. They avoid ventures because they might fail. And by avoiding risk, they guarantee something worse: mediocrity. Rich thinkers treat risk as the ticket to growth. They don't gamble blindly, they calculate. They study, prepare, and build margins of safety. Then they act while others are paralyzed. They understand that the biggest risk isn't losing money, it's losing time and opportunity while standing still. Picture two people with the same savings. One leaves it in a low-interest account, safe but shrinking under inflation. The other invests wisely, accepts volatility, and lets compounding do the heavy lifting. 20 years later, the first wonders why his money bought less, while the second is free. Same starting point, different response to risk. The poor see risk as danger. The rich see risk as leverage. They know failure is survivable, money can be earned back, lessons learned, strategies adjusted. What isn't recoverable is the chance missed because of fear. That's the silent killer. Entrepreneurs live this daily. Every successful business exists because someone stepped into uncertainty. The poor call them lucky. The rich know luck is simply risk embraced while others hesitated. This doesn't mean every risk is smart. The poor confuse recklessness with courage, throwing money into schemes, chasing shortcuts. The rich play by rules, only invest in what they understand, only bet what they can afford to lose, and always protect the downside. Risk without discipline is suicide. Risk with discipline is wealth. Here's the challenge. Think of one area where fear has kept you stuck: an investment, a new skill, a project. Write down the worst-case scenario. Then write down how you'd recover if it happened. You'll find the risk is smaller than the fear made it. Now take one step forward. Because the truth is simple. Life is risk. The poor risk everything by trying to risk nothing. The rich embrace risk, and in doing so, they cross the line into wealth. Assets versus paychecks. The poor chase paychecks. The rich build assets. That's one of the sharpest lines between them. A paycheck keeps you alive today. An asset keeps you alive tomorrow, and every day after that. Poor thinkers trade time for money. They measure success by the size of their salary. If it goes up, they celebrate. But the moment they stop working, the paycheck stops. No paycheck, no income. It's a hamster wheel. Run faster, earn more, stop running, earn nothing. Rich thinkers use paychecks differently. They treat them as fuel to build assets. Investments, businesses, properties, systems. Assets are money machines. They don't depend on your time or energy. They grow while you sleep, pay you while you rest, and outlive your labor. Assets are the real freedom. Here's the problem. Poor thinkers spend their paychecks on liabilities: cars, gadgets, entertainment, and status. These things drain money but produce nothing. They confuse lifestyle with wealth, and when the paycheck ends, they have nothing left. Rich thinkers delay gratification. They take the same paycheck and buy assets that produce income. A decade later, one side owns things that rust, while the other owns things that multiply. Picture two friends earning the same $5,000 a month. One buys a new car with payments that swallow a quarter of his income. The other drives a modest car and invests the difference into dividend-paying stocks. 10 years later, the first friend is broke. The car is old, and he's still chained to the job. The second friend has an investment portfolio that pays him every month whether he works or not. Same income, different choices. Kevin O'Leary calls money soldiers. Poor thinkers send their soldiers out to die on junk, liabilities, and fleeting pleasures. Rich thinkers send their soldiers out to fight for them, bringing back reinforcements month after month. One army gets weaker, the other grows unstoppable. So how do you cross the line? First, learn to spot the difference between an asset and a liability. An asset puts money into your pocket. A liability takes it out. Second, make a rule. Every paycheck must fund assets first, lifestyle second. That single discipline flips you from consumer to owner. Your challenge: take 10% of your next paycheck and direct it into an asset, stocks, funds, real estate, or even building a small side business. No excuses, no delay. Assets won't build themselves, but once planted, they will work for you forever. Because in the end, paychecks keep you dependent. Assets set you free. The poor work for money. The rich make money work for them. The line is clear, so which side are you on? Skills versus certificates. The poor chase certificates. The rich chase skills. That's the line. Poor thinkers stack diplomas like trophies, convinced that paper alone guarantees success. They believe the right degree will buy them a safe job, steady income, and respect. But a certificate is only proof you sat in a classroom. It doesn't guarantee you can solve problems, create value, or compete in the real world. Rich thinkers know the marketplace doesn't pay for paper. It pays for results. Skills produce results. Skills solve problems. Skills create opportunities. A man with one high-value skill will always out-earn the man with 3 degrees who can't apply them. Think of coding, sales, negotiation, finance, communication. None of these require a certificate. They require competence. Poor thinkers wait for validation from institutions. Rich thinkers validate themselves in the market. If people will pay you for what you can do, you're valuable, certificate or not. This doesn't mean education is worthless. It means education without application is. Poor thinkers stop learning once the diploma is in hand. Rich thinkers never stop. They use formal education as a foundation, then keep sharpening, adapting, and acquiring new skills long after graduation. Consider 2 people. Both spend $50,000. One spends it on a degree, then stops. The other splits it between learning sales, marketing, investing, and building a side business. 10 years later, the first is still in debt, chasing promotions. The second owns income streams, built on skills the market rewards. Kevin O'Leary often tells entrepreneurs, if you can't make money, you don't have a business, you have a hobby. The same goes for individuals. If your knowledge doesn't produce value, it's trivia. The poor hide behind credentials. The rich prove themselves in the marketplace. So, how do you cross this line? Audit your abilities. Ask, what skills do I have that make money right now? What skills could I build that the market pays for? Then invest your time in sharpening those. Don't wait for another certificate. Get good at something people actually need. Your challenge. This month, commit 1 hour a day to building a money-making skill, whether it's coding, copywriting, investing, or sales. In 1 year, that hour a day will separate you from 99% of people still waving diplomas no one cares about. Because in the end, certificates decorate walls, skills build wealth. The poor chase validation. The rich chase competence. That's the thin line, and it's yours to cross. Building networks versus gossiping. The poor waste time talking about people. The rich invest time building networks with people. That's the line. Poor thinkers use their conversations for gossip, jealousy, and small talk. They trade stories about who failed, who cheated, who embarrassed themselves. None of it builds opportunity. None of it creates value. Gossip is entertainment for the powerless. Rich thinkers use conversations as investments. They ask questions, exchange ideas, connect with mentors, partners, and decision-makers. They know that one strong relationship can open doors money never could. They don't gossip down, they network up. Look at any wealthy individual and you'll see a circle of influence surrounding them. Lawyers, accountants, investors, entrepreneurs, connectors. That circle multiplies their reach, knowledge, and leverage. Poor thinkers rarely escape their own circles of gossip, negativity, and mediocrity. They stay trapped in rooms where no one has ambition and wonder why they never rise. Kevin O'Leary often says, "Money goes where it's treated best." The same is true of people. High-value individuals gravitate toward those who bring value, not noise. If your conversations produce nothing but gossip, don't expect anyone powerful to stick around. Consider two employees at the same company. One spends lunch breaks gossiping about the boss. The other spends lunch breaks asking questions, learning from managers, and connecting with colleagues who push him higher. Years later, the gossiper is still bitter in the same role, while the networker is leading a team connected to opportunity. This is not about fake networking, collecting business cards, or shaking hands at events. It's about genuine value exchange. The rich ask, "What can I offer this person? How can we help each other?" The poor ask, "What story can I spread? What drama can I feed?" So how do you cross the line? Audit your conversations. If most of your words are about people who aren't in the room, you're gossiping. If most of your words are about ideas, opportunities, and solutions, you're networking. One drains, the other multiplies. Your challenge. This week, replace 1 hour of gossip with 1 hour of intentional connection. Reach out to someone smarter than you, more experienced than you, or already where you want to be. Ask questions. Listen. Offer value. Build one bridge, then another. Over years, those bridges form a network that can carry you across obstacles money alone never could. Because in the end, gossip is cheap noise. Networks are priceless leverage. The poor waste their voices. The rich use theirs to climb. That's the line. Which side are you speaking from? Delaying gratification versus demanding it now. The poor want the reward today. The rich are willing to wait. That's the line. Poor thinkers demand instant payoff. If they don't see results immediately, they quit. They want the paycheck on Friday, the promotion next month, the comfort right now. This hunger for quick gratification traps them in small, short-term wins and keeps them blind to long-term growth. Rich thinkers play the long game. They understand compounding requires patience. They invest today for returns 10 years from now. They work without applause, build without recognition, and sacrifice comfort in the short term to secure freedom in the long term. That patience is why they win. Think of money. Poor thinkers spend every dollar the moment it arrives. New phone, new shoes, new entertainment. The rich invest that dollar, let it grow, and use the returns to buy luxuries later. 10 years later, the spender has nothing but faded receipts. The investor has wealth producing more wealth. This isn't just money. It's fitness, business, relationships. Poor thinkers want shortcuts and hacks. Rich thinkers stick to fundamentals. Steady effort, consistent discipline, delayed gratification. The poor quit the gym after 2 weeks without results. The rich keep training for years until the results are permanent. Kevin O'Leary calls money a soldier. Every time you spend impulsively, you've killed a soldier that could have fought for you forever. Poor thinkers execute their soldiers on luxuries. Rich thinkers send theirs into battle, and they return with reinforcements. This is why debt destroys the poor. Credit cards, payday loans, buy now, pay later. All are tools of instant gratification. They trade tomorrow for today, and the interest chains them for years. The rich flip it, delaying gratification today, so tomorrow compounds in their favor. So how do you cross the line? Train your brain to crave the long term. When faced with an impulse, pause and ask, if I delay this, what will it grow into? Every time you resist, you strengthen discipline. Every time you cave, you weaken it. Your challenge: this week, deny yourself one impulse purchase a day. Put the money into savings or investments instead. Watch how quickly the habit builds. Each small denial is a brick in the wall of wealth. Because in the end, poor thinkers eat the seed. Rich thinkers plant it. The poor demand gratification now and stay broke. The rich delay it and end up free. That's the line. Which side will you stand on? Money works versus working for money. The poor work for money. The rich make money work for them. That is one of the clearest dividing lines. Poor thinkers believe labor is the only path to income. They exchange hours for dollars, hoping that working harder will finally set them free. But hours are limited, energy is limited, and the paycheck stops the moment they stop working. That's why they never escape. Rich thinkers know money itself can work harder, longer, and smarter than any human being. Once invested, it doesn't sleep, doesn't eat, doesn't complain. It compounds, it grows, it multiplies. They understand that every dollar is an employee, and the goal is to hire as many employees as possible. Picture two people earning the same salary. One spends every dollar on bills and luxuries, ending each month at zero. The other invests a portion into stocks, real estate, or a business. 10 years later, the first has nothing to show for a decade of effort. The second has an army of dollars producing more dollars, independent of his labor. The poor fear investing because they fear loss. They keep money idle in low-interest accounts, where inflation silently eats it alive. The rich accept calculated risks because they know the real loss is letting money sit useless. Every idle dollar is wasted potential. Kevin O'Leary once put it bluntly, "If your money isn't working, you're going to die poor." That cold truth defines the line. The poor cling to the illusion of security. The rich seek freedom through ownership and investment. This mindset extends beyond finance. The poor waste time doing tasks they could delegate cheaply. The rich invest by outsourcing and using leverage, freeing themselves to focus on higher value activities. It's the same principle, Make resources work for you instead of being enslaved by them. So how do you cross the line? Start treating every dollar as a soldier. Don't kill it with consumption. Deploy it into assets. Even small amounts compound over time. Stop thinking like a worker. Start thinking like an owner. Your challenge. This week, take one recurring expense and flip it into an investment of equal size. Instead of wasting $100 on entertainment, put $100 into an index fund, a side hustle, or skills that pay. Repeat this consistently, and you'll see the shift. Your money begins to work while you sleep. Because in the end, the poor stay slaves to their wages. The rich free themselves by building armies of money. One side works until death. The other lets money work forever. That's the thin line. Which side are you training your dollars to stand on? Control emotions versus react to them. The poor let emotions drive decisions. The rich make decisions and force emotions to obey. That's the line. Poor thinkers panic when markets dip, so they sell at the bottom. They get greedy when prices soar, so they buy at the top. Fear and greed control their moves, and the result is predictable. Losses, regret, excuses. In business, the same weakness shows. They lash out when angry, fold when pressured, celebrate too soon, or quit too fast. Emotion rules them, and poverty follows. Rich thinkers feel the same emotions: fear, greed, anger, excitement, but they don't act on them impulsively. They pause, analyze, and decide based on principle, not impulse. This ability to stay calm when others panic, or patient when others rush, is what creates advantage. Picture two investors with identical portfolios. The poor-minded one checks his account daily, his mood swinging with the market. He sells in fear, buys in excitement, and slowly bleeds wealth. The rich-minded one checks less often, guided by long-term strategy. He buys value, ignores noise, and lets compounding do the heavy lifting. After decades, one is broke, the other is free. Same market, different control. Kevin O'Leary is notorious for this discipline. On Shark Tank, entrepreneurs often cry, plead, or get emotional. He cuts straight through it. Don't cry about money. Money doesn't care. That's the voice of someone who knows emotions cloud judgment. The rich don't indulge in drama. They make clear-eyed decisions. This goes beyond investing. In families, uncontrolled emotions destroy trust. In careers, emotional reactions ruin reputations. In negotiations, the one who stays calm always wins. Emotional weakness costs far more than money. It costs opportunity, credibility, and time. So how do you cross this line? Start with awareness. Notice when emotions rise. Fear before a choice, anger before a response, temptation before a purchase. Insert space before action. Breathe. Delay. Ask, does this serve my long-term plan? That pause is the difference between control and reaction. Your challenge: for the next 7 days, delay every emotional reaction by 60 seconds. When tempted to spend, wait a minute. When ready to argue, wait a minute. When fear says quit, wait a minute. That pause trains discipline, because in the end, the poor lose wealth, relationships, and years of their lives because they react. The rich protect wealth, build trust, and secure their future because they control. Same emotions, different response. That's the line. Which side are you on? Growth versus comfort. The poor chase comfort. The rich chase growth. That's the line. Poor thinkers want ease, predictability, and convenience. They want jobs that don't stretch them, routines that don't challenge them, and entertainment that distracts them. Comfort feels safe, but it rots ambition. It traps them in cycles where nothing improves, because nothing uncomfortable is ever attempted. Rich thinkers know comfort is poison. Growth only comes through discomfort. New skills, new risks, new responsibilities. They deliberately seek challenges because they understand that pain is tuition. Every uncomfortable step sharpens their edge and expands their capacity. That's why they keep advancing while the poor stay stuck. Picture two workers. One does the bare minimum, avoids tough projects, and clocks out mentally the moment the shift ends. The other volunteers for challenges, learns on the job, and accepts the stress that comes with growth. A decade later, one is still clinging to the same position, bitter about being overlooked. The other has risen into leadership, not because he was smarter, but because he embraced discomfort. Comfort destroys financial futures too. Poor thinkers spend to feel good now. New gadgets, new toys, and fleeting pleasures. Rich thinkers delay gratification and invest instead. They accept the discomfort of sacrifice today so they can enjoy exponential comfort tomorrow. Kevin O'Leary puts it plainly, money doesn't care about your comfort. The market rewards value, not feelings. If you avoid discomfort, you avoid growth. If you avoid growth, you avoid wealth. Simple as that. So how do you cross the line? Train yourself to do one uncomfortable thing daily. Speak up in the meeting. Learn the difficult skill. Take on the hard task. Each time you step into discomfort, you stretch the boundary of who you are and the boundary of what wealth can become for you. Your challenge. This week, identify one comfort zone you've been clinging to and break it. Replace it with a growth habit, no matter how small. Track the progress. Soon, the discomfort fades and growth becomes your new comfort zone. Because in the end, the poor seek comfort and stay poor. The rich seek growth and buy freedom. One side chooses the couch. The other side chooses the climb. That's the thin line. And the climb is waiting. Studying money versus ignoring it. The poor ignore money. The rich study it. That's the line. Poor thinkers treat money like a mystery. They avoid looking at their bank statements. They don't know where their paycheck goes. They don't understand credit, debt, interest, or investing. They hope somehow it all works out. And when it doesn't, they blame bad luck. Ignorance feels easier in the short term, but it's ruinous in the long term. Rich thinkers study money relentlessly. They track cash flow, understand interest, and know the difference between assets and liabilities. They learn how money moves in markets, in businesses, in the global economy. They know the rules of the game because they've studied the game. And when you know the rules, you can win. Think of two people handed $10,000. One doesn't understand investing, so he lets it sit in a savings account, earning nothing while inflation eats it alive. The other studies how to invest, puts it into assets, and lets compounding do the work. 10 years later, one is poorer, the other is wealthier. Same starting point, different knowledge. Kevin O'Leary often reminds entrepreneurs, numbers don't lie. Poor thinkers avoid the numbers because they're uncomfortable. Rich thinkers live in the numbers because that's where truth hides. They study, they measure, they adjust. That discipline turns ignorance into advantage. This doesn't mean you need a finance degree. It means you need awareness. Read books, study markets, track your spending, learn how taxes work. Pay attention to how money flows around you. Money rewards the people who respect it enough to understand it. It punishes those who ignore it. So how do you cross the line? Start with your own life. Track every dollar for the next 30 days. Where does it go? How much builds assets? How much leaks into waste? That exercise alone will wake you up. Then commit to lifelong study. One book, one course, one mentor at a time. Your challenge. This week, pick one money topic you've been avoiding, budgeting, investing, or debt, and study it deeply. Not casually, deeply. Apply one change based on what you learn. Knowledge without action is trivia. Knowledge applied is power. Because in the end, the poor stay broke not because money is unfair, but because they refuse to understand it. The rich grow wealth, not because they're lucky, but because they study the rules and play by them. Money isn't hiding. It's waiting for you to learn its language. That's the line. Using leverage versus avoiding it. The poor avoid leverage. The rich master it. That's the line. Poor thinkers believe the only way forward is through their own labor. They rely solely on their two hands, their limited hours, their personal energy. But no matter how hard you work, there are only 24 hours in a day. That ceiling guarantees struggle. Rich thinkers understand leverage, the ability to multiply results without multiplying effort. They use money, people, technology, and systems to expand their reach far beyond what one person could achieve alone. They know that wealth comes not from working harder, but from making smarter use of resources. Think of money as the simplest form of leverage. Poor thinkers hoard it in savings accounts, letting inflation eat it alive. Rich thinkers invest it, letting capital do the heavy lifting. Every invested dollar becomes a worker that never sleeps, never asks for a raise, and never takes a vacation. But money isn't the only lever. People are leverage. Poor thinkers insist on doing everything themselves, clinging to control. Rich thinkers delegate, outsource, and hire talent that multiplies output. Technology is leverage. Poor thinkers ignore tools and automation. Rich thinkers use them to save time, reduce costs, and scale quickly. Kevin O'Leary is blunt about this. Your job as an entrepreneur is to create wealth by leveraging other people's time, other people's money, and technology. If you try to do it all yourself, you've already lost. Picture two business owners. One runs a shop by himself, working 16-hour days, exhausted and capped by his own limits. The other builds systems, hires staff, and uses e-commerce tools. One is trapped in labor, the other scales into freedom. Same business idea, different leverage. So how do you cross the line? Start small. Identify one task in your life you could delegate, automate, or invest in. Free that time and reinvest it in higher value work. Leverage isn't about being rich first. It's about using whatever you have to multiply. Your challenge? This week, find one lever. Automate a bill payment. Outsource a task. Invest a small amount instead of letting it sit idle. Build a system that works while you don't. That single step shifts you from surviving on your own effort to multiplying effort. Because in the end, the poor avoid leverage and stay trapped in limits. The rich use leverage and break limits. One side is chained by time. The other side is freed by systems. That's the thin line. And once you cross it, the game changes forever. Creating value versus consuming it. The poor consume, the rich create. That's the line. Poor thinkers are obsessed with taking, buying the newest gadgets, binging on entertainment, chasing trends. Their money and energy flow outward in endless consumption. At the end of the day, nothing is left. No assets, no ownership, no leverage, just bills and regret. Rich thinkers focus on creation. They ask, what can I build? What problem can I solve? What value can I add that people will pay for? They create businesses, products, services, and systems. They own platforms instead of scrolling them. They produce content instead of just consuming it. They provide solutions instead of complaining about problems. Look at any fortune and you'll find creation at its core. Netflix created a new way to watch. Apple created new ways to connect. Even small businesses, the local cafe, the independent contractor, the online seller, grow wealth by creating something others want. The poor keep buying, the rich keep building. Consumption is easy, anyone can do it. That's why it pays nothing. Creation is hard. It requires risk, effort, and patience. That's why it pays endlessly. The poor think wealth is about having nicer things. The rich know wealth is about producing things others value. Kevin O'Leary often reminds entrepreneurs, if you're not making money, you don't have a business. You have a hobby. The same applies to life. If you only consume and never create, you'll stay dependent on someone else's creation, and you'll pay for it forever. Consider social media. The poor waste hours scrolling, feeding algorithms, consuming distractions. The rich use the same platforms to build audiences, brands, and businesses. Same technology, opposite outcomes. One loses time and money. The other multiplies both. So how do you cross the line? Shift 1 hour a day from consuming to creating. Write, design, record, build, sell, produce something of value. It won't be perfect at first. It doesn't need to be. Over time, creation compounds, while consumption evaporates. Your challenge: this week, replace one habit of consumption with one act of creation. Instead of watching videos, make one. Instead of buying, build something. Instead of scrolling, write something useful. It doesn't have to be massive. What matters is training yourself to create more than you consume. Because in the end, the poor live off what others create. The rich become the creators everyone else depends on. That's the line. Which side are you standing on, consumer or creator? Responsibility versus excuses. The poor make excuses. The rich take responsibility. That's the line. Poor thinkers blame everything but themselves. The economy is unfair. The boss is cruel. The government failed. Their parents didn't provide. Their friends didn't help. Excuses are their shield and their prison. Every excuse delays action, and every delay compounds into stagnation. Rich thinkers own their outcomes. If they fail, they say, "It's my fault. What can I learn? What can I do differently?" They don't waste energy blaming. They redirect it into fixing. That ownership creates power, because the moment you accept responsibility, you regain control. Excuses hand power away. Responsibility takes it back. Kevin O'Leary doesn't sugarcoat this. On Shark Tank, When an entrepreneur blames the market, the competition, or timing, he cuts them off. Stop whining. If you're blaming others, you don't have a business. Harsh? Yes, but true. The market doesn't care about excuses. It only rewards results. Excuses feel free, but they're the most expensive debt you'll ever carry. One excuse costs you a day, another costs you a year. Stack them, and you've lost decades. Meanwhile, responsibility compounds too. Each time you own a mistake and act, you build momentum. Over years, that momentum turns into mastery. Consider two employees passed over for promotion. The poor-minded one blames favoritism, bad luck, unfair bosses. The rich-minded one asks, "What skill am I missing? What value didn't I provide?" One gets bitter, the other gets better. Same event, different mindset, opposite outcomes. So how do you cross the line? Kill excuses the moment they appear. Replace "I can't because" with "I will" by figuring out how. Shift focus from who's to blame to what you can change. It's not about guilt, it's about control. Your challenge for the next 7 days: catch every excuse you make. Write it down. Then flip it into a responsibility. If you say, "I don't have time," rewrite it as, "I didn't prioritize." If you say, "I can't afford it," rewrite it as, "I haven't created enough income yet." Watch how the language shift forces your brain to act instead of complain. Because in the end, excuses are poverty's fuel. Responsibility is wealth's foundation. The poor explain, the rich execute. That's the thin line, and it runs straight through your words. Legacy versus day-to-day. The poor live for today, the rich build for tomorrow, and for generations after. That's the line. Poor thinkers focus only on immediate needs, paying bills, chasing comfort, surviving the month. Their vision stops at the next paycheck. Because of that, their families inherit nothing but the same struggle. Poverty becomes generational, passed down like a curse. Rich thinkers look beyond themselves. They ask, "What will outlast me? What foundation am I leaving?" They build assets, businesses, and principles that continue producing after they're gone. Legacy is not just about money. It's about creating systems, values, and security that protect the next generation. Kevin O'Leary calls money freedom. Freedom doesn't just belong to you. It belongs to your children and their children. The poor say, "I'll let them figure it out." The rich say, "I'll give them a starting point." That difference defines the line between families who rise and families who repeat the same cycle forever. Think of two parents with the same income. One spends everything on lifestyle: cars, clothes, entertainment, leaving nothing behind. The other saves, invests, and teaches their children about money. Decades later, one family is still struggling, while the other has wealth, knowledge, and habits passed down. Same paycheck, different vision. Legacy also means reputation. The poor leave behind stories of struggle and excuses. The rich leave behind stories of discipline, ownership, and creation. One fades, the other multiplies. So how do you cross the line? Shift your vision from survival to legacy. Ask yourself, if I died tomorrow, what systems, values, or assets would continue working for my family? Then build toward that. Even small steps matter. A savings account for your children, a will, a business, a skill you teach them. These are seeds of legacy. Your challenge, this week, take one deliberate action toward legacy. Open an account for your kids. Write down your financial plan. Teach someone younger one valuable skill. Legacy is built in small bricks, laid consistently. Because in the end, the poor live day to day, and poverty repeats itself. The rich build legacy, and wealth multiplies across generations. That's the line. The question is, will you leave your family with nothing but your debts and excuses? Or will you leave them a foundation strong enough to stand on? You've walked through the dividing lines, opportunities versus obstacles, guarding time versus killing it, embracing risk versus fearing it, building assets instead of chasing paychecks, creating value instead of consuming endlessly, and finally, living for legacy instead of just the day. Every chapter has shown the same truth. The gap between rich and poor is not a mystery. It is not luck, not fate, not privilege alone. It is mindset, and mindset creates behavior. Behavior creates outcomes. Over years, those outcomes become destiny. The poor remain trapped because they repeat the same patterns. Short-term thinking, wasted time, excuses, comfort. They live reactive lives, blaming forces outside their control. The rich break free by flipping those same choices. Long-term vision, guarded time, ownership, growth, leverage, responsibility. They live proactive lives, building structures that multiply and endure. The line is thin, but it is real. And every day, you are standing on it, choosing, through your thoughts and actions, which side you belong to. Your future is not written. It is not predetermined. It is built, one disciplined choice at a time, and the choice is yours. If this message hit you, don't let it fade into background noise. Do something with it. Like this video if it gave you clarity. Comment below with the line that struck you hardest. What shift are you going to make starting today? Share this with someone who needs to hear a hard truth, not a soft excuse. Subscribe if you want more of these raw, no-nonsense lessons about money and mindset. The poor consume content and move on. The rich act on it. Which one are you?